Why, hello there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogbo333 and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, the New Order, the real one as the United Kingdom. Now, last video, well, the heads of the resistance have finally been cut off. We also tricked him into killing William Joyce, which was very, very funny. But now here we stand. We're about to implement some rationing measures. As Germany continues. Last time Mary had seen a ration card was only a few years ago, in the early days of Chesterton Ministry, when the food rationing from the Second World War finally came to an end. Ironic, she thought, that she should be standing here, ration coupons in hand under the remnants of his now dead successors. "Let me have a look at those," said the grocer, taking Mary's selection of coupons and checking them carefully for any signs of forgery. There's another thing that had returned in full swing from last war, she thought: the black market. Satisfied with their legitimacy, the grocer stuffed the coupons in his pocket and began to rummage around the groups of crates at his feet, picking up the precise amount of food as dictated by the rations. One by one, memories of waiting patiently for her mother to return with the shopping, as Home Guard and ARP wardens kept watch, came trickling back. But that was another war and another Britain. Looking instead aside, she was reminded of how much Britain had changed. Instead of Home Guard and police keeping a reassuring eye on things, there's instead a gang of BFC thugs lurking in the corner, the police clutching their firearms with a wary look in their eyes. If that wasn't enough, the swastika flying high from the town hall, repurposed into a garrison HQ and yet to be returned, reminded everyone whose boots their neck rested under. "There, ma'am. Good day to you," the grocer said, handing over Mary's shopping and snapping her out of her reverie. Accepting the bag with a simple "thank you," she began the long walk back home. Left alone with her thoughts and fears for future, all she could hope for now was that things recovered and got back to normal, or whatever normal passed for these days, and an end to the horrors that haunted her every night. All she wanted was peace. Well, we can hope. We still gotta get our inflation under control, but we'll get there. Let's get back to the factory. You need armed men to win a war. Certainly, it is remarkably difficult with armed dogs and armed cats. Yet there's a rather poignant downside to the use of drafted men as an army. Namely, they were probably doing a rather large number of useful things before we drafted them. Since they haven't been undertaking the boring but necessary drudgery that is factory work, our economy has been suffering rather acutely. Well, more than ever, it was more than it was already thanks to Civil War. We'll need to demobilize them, promise them their pensions, offer them treatment for the war's injuries, and generally do whatever is necessary to get their rear ends back onto the factory floor. Britain won't be worth much if its economy is cratered into the bloody ground. Now will it? Well, the pensions will help out with our economy. I think at least. Performance 1. Back to the factory. Now let's go ahead and let's rebuild the roads. Roads are vital to the maintenance of any modern society. They provide conduits for easy transportation of food and goods, and are vital for power projection besides. Yet roads are in, it must be said, rather prone to being damaged in the course of the war. Bombs render them unusable by vehicles, and mines can render entire swaths of them dangerous. Therefore, government will need to begin a commission to analyze exactly which roads are damaged and to what extent to get the main arteries to travel back up and running. We have the labor for sure, plenty of men without work these days, but they need to be directed, and that's a job for our commission to do. Some of the work will likely be shoddy, but there are sacrifices in everything, and this is no real exception. Well, our army is developing, at least. If nothing else. It's basically nothing else at this point. Let's do homes for heroes. At the end of the day, who won this war? The soldiers, that's who. These brave sons of Britannia who put their lives on the line and fought to save their nation from anarchy and madness. They are the heroes one and all, and deserve a hero's rest. Someone suggested we redeploy our forces across Britain to rebuild, to keep our army mobilized for swift reconstruction. What utter nonsense. Not only will such proposal be a gross betrayal of these valiant souls, who deserve to return to their loved ones, but also horribly inefficient and detrimental to our shattered economy. We'll send our boys home and begin drafting up contracts for rebuilding with our mega-corporate allies from across the channel. That is how we honor our heroes, and ensure their homes are rebuilt as quickly, cleanly, and efficiently as possible. It really is the least we can do, and it shan't be the last. Still got military austerity going, that's right. Oh, Dick Nixon resigned. Brigadier Tommy Edwards jumped off the tailgate of the military truck. He waved goodbye to his former comrades as they drove off into the distance. Edwards sighed. The whole war for him had seen many of his closest friends being filled with lead, with him being the last one standing. He guessed now that the war was over, it was a return to normalcy. He could enjoy having friends again, but even the Brigadier knew that that was a very dubious comment to make. Seeing the destruction that had rocked the few towns his squad had already passed. Edward scratched his temple and looked behind him to see his family's home. He placed both his hands out on his head and in shock. Wooden planks covered each door and window. Dirt and small spots of blood were stained on the exterior walls. Small holes littered the roof. He threw his bag against what was left of the fence and ran to the home. He beckoned for his father. Nothing came back. He called out for his mother, this time with success. Leaning his head to the living room entrance, he saw his mother, secluded to her chair, reaching her hands out to her son. Edwards fell straight into her arms. After a decent 2 minutes of bonding, the son asked his mother a question he never wanted to ask. Mom, do you know where Dad is? Releasing Tommy from her arms, he pointed to the photo on the table next to her. Tommy, I would never imagine this day would come, but your dad, my George, he didn't make it. His eyes widened beyond belief. He let the tears flow in his face. Before he could grieve, he made a promise. The house may have been lost, but the memories would remain. Now let's get a future for patriots. Britain now stands at a crossroads. Tens of thousands of our own now rest under the soil. Their fathers and brothers left to pick up the pieces and rebuild. While this reality is obviously far from optimal, we have an opportunity to create a world forged in the vision of Britain's true birthright. One our children can follow for generations to come. Our soldiers, great warriors they are, will be the guiding pillar in our new society. Those who fight to protect the British way of life will be immortalized in their triumphs. The first step in our vision for the future. Let's send the whips out. And let's also expel some troublemakers. Patriots. Let's start producing more stuff. An intervention in Africa. Oh, well, that's what they need right now. I mean, they're already kind of winning. Oh, sorry. Save the BPP. The British People's Party has been divided ever since its creation. Whether they be true followers of Duce, or fewer pragmatists and collaborators, or something of their own kin. They always existed since the Creek first arrived on British shores. In these times of darkness, factions rise. For Britain, there are dark clouds above its land. It's now time for Britain to choose its fate. Whether that be one of the baseline or in the current, one of reform and change, or something of its own unique breed. One more of these days, Noel Kane had found himself with time in the evening to just think, to let all the problems Brendan faced fade away, until it was just him and his thoughts, unburned by the colossal weight of responsibilities his office bore. Well, his for a little while longer at least. He knew he was a temporary PM. He had known that since his first day in power, but Noel Kane was content with this. His mind turned to those who could succeed him. Fontaine has proved his opponents and lords wrong during the uprising, or as they simply regarded him as a bag of hot wind, they now looked upon him with respect and fear. Under him, British fascism would burn brighter than ever, scorching his enemies as it leads Britain down a revolutionary path. But what form would that revolution take? Butler had shown his doubters in the Commons that he was able to as able and effective as he claimed to be. The survival of the British economy bring down to him and his clique alone. Under him, Britain would turn away from fascism for good, instead sailing down an older route, one of pragmatic, paternalistic government. But which port would it finally sail into? Whatever that future, Noel Kane was content. History would always remember him as a wartime PM, the man who took the shattered remnants of the government and led them to victory against the rebels. He was Prime Minister during one of the most important events in British history, and for that, his name and that of his family would be immortal. But Noel Kane's would be remembered, and that was enough for him. A lord's dream come true. Well, boys and girls, and those who don't identify with either, we're inclusive here. Let's do it. What has happened to dear old England? This land of nobility, virtue, and pride has fallen to Betty infighting and ruin at the hands of her sworn enemies. Have we put down a vile rebellion, only to tear ourselves apart at the hands of a weak-willed liberal and would-be tyrant? No. And we have not. Gerard Wallop, Ninth Earl of Portsmouth, has heard England's cries for aid and rides gallantly to her defense. The old guard of the BPP sally forth alongside him, true to the knightly figure, whose image our party bears. We've held power for nearly 20 years. We will not lose it now. Alright, we're finally getting some GDP growth. I'm gonna start working on counting pennies a little bit more. Oh, I gotta pause. Still got some growth going. Leaving get our credit rating up soon enough. And our inflation is coming down. Very nice. Our nation has suffered devastation unlike any in recent memory. It's my view, one that I believe shall be reaffirmed among the lords and ladies of most esteemed house, that salvation lies not with inexperienced ideologues or bloodless bureaucrats, but in the traditions once upheld by Sir Admiral Barry Domville. Get me! Fontaine stammered to his secretary. Get me! His office was abuzz with Sun News. Ringing phones were constant, as were the barked orders of panic advisors. Bean, get me Bean and Ham, get me... Bloody hell, get me everyone! I want them all in a room 5 minutes ago. For the renewal of our moral and spiritual health, for the rebuilding of our country and so recently scarred by the war, for the revitalization of English spirit, I hereby announce that I will stand for the office of Prime Minister. Butler rubbed his temples where a headache pounded like an unwanted guest. He wasn't sure whether to thank or curse God for this. Yes, BPP were split, but this new development advocated party grandees that might have otherwise slept through this conflict with Fontaine. The field expanded, new players joined the game, and none of them were on Butler's side. To return dignity and honor to all Englishmen in the cities and among the Green Dales, under my stewardship, the British People's Party will continue the work of our predecessors and restore glory to the Isles. Wall bade farewell to the braying journalists with a nod and walked away from the podium flanked by his advisors. He felt invigorated. For the first time in years, he felt the Lord's hand on the till. They would wrest it away from the wild, uncharted path of zealots and technocrats. Only the old guard can steer her into calm waters. Every action has its equal and opposite reaction. Alright, I think we'll work on a clear gas. We'll work on gas, I guess. Let's work on English character. It is a sad fact that politics that an awful lot of convincing is required to make politicians realize why you are correct and why they are wrong. And it's precisely this laborious but vital task Lord Portsmouth must undertake if he's to secure his candidacy for Downing Street. The old guard stand behind him, but swaying crossbenchers of the Lords and wavering ideologues and pragmatists in the Commons is crucial to our success. As Wallop cannot actually speak in the Commons, nor would it be fitting for him to do so, must rely on loyal MPs to speak his words. Soon both chambers will resonate with his righteous words, and Parliament will come to support our noble cause. I'm well aware that some of you may harbor reservations about working with us again. Sorry, my nose is stuffed. I'm trying to clear it out so I can better speak. Began Lord Portsmouth surveying the group of several dozen MPs gathered before him in a parliamentary lounge, now being used for anything but relaxing. However, Fontaine cannot simply win against Butler. He does not have the support necessary to save Britain from their schemes. I, however, do. Wallop paused, then, gauging the reactions from the audience, all Fontaine loyalists whom he judged could be convinced. From the remaining look of interest on their face, they could still be swayed. Many of you no doubt lost faith in Chesterton after the uprising of '56, but I ask of you to consider, after your own recent experiences in an even more dangerous uprising, could he have done anything better more than he did? I ask you to think very carefully about the future of this country. Set aside our differences and unite against the common foe in Butler. Support me and we shall save this nation. Included Lord Portsmouth, waiting for reaction, silently begging for one. One of the MPs stood before him, a Peter Hugsley Blythe, if you recall correctly, staunch Mosleyite and a leading member of Ham's little clique. I cannot speak for everyone here, Lord Portsmouth, he glanced, glancing aside at a pair of MPs seated away from the others. But you have my support for PM. If Chesterton stands with you, we will follow him again. Relief flooded over Wallop as he thanked Huxley Blythe and made the mental note to reward him from his ministerial post for this. As the MPs filed out, a group of peers filed in, both looking equally surprised to see their counterparts here. A powerful force was building upon Parliament's halls. It was a force that Lord Portsmouth would command. There's a new power's victory at hand. All we have English wisdom. And the ideologues are ours, with most members reincorporated into their proper place under the old guard, and the stubborn few who remain reduced to irrelevancy. It's time to begin our offensive on our real rivals within Parliament, the pragmatist. While also expected, few have broken ranks to support us, meaning it's time to change tactics. Instead of combating and assimilating with them within Parliament, as we did the ideologues, we shall uproot their support base and leave them adrift. The common folk crave sound leadership, happy life, and the end of German meddling. Lord Portsmouth can provide all three. It's time that the people are shown this glorious truth. France revokes. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Let's show a little bit of reconciliation. Interesting again. Butler had always wondered how exactly Wallop intended to sway the BPP to his side, given that he was struck in the Lords. The new leader would be decided in the Commons. Of that, there is little doubt, with Parliament being used as a primary battleground for the BPP's warring factions. But just how would Wallop get around the restrictions of him speaking there? Today, Butler had his answers. A backbencher rose to speak. Proxies. Looking up at Wallop in the House of Lords, Bedford and Chesterton among them, sitting in the gallery above, he could almost see the strings descended upon the MP about to speak. My right honourable friends, he began, as more and more eyes turned upwards as who was really speaking. Britain remains in a crisis, and we require true leadership to lead us into the uncertain years ahead. Leadership that, unfortunately, neither Andrew Fontaine nor Rab Butler seems to possess. Shouting erupted from certain corners of the chamber, causing the speaker to bang his gavel loudly. Besides Butler, Fontaine grimaced, both men momentarily united against the Earl sitting high above them. Fontaine has proved himself little more than a petulant child, claiming to be able to run the country, yet unable to even run the Black Shorts properly. Then there's Mr. Butler, well-meaning I'm sure, but far too influenced by international finance and bankers. He would see us sleepwalk back into the chain who escaped in 45. Nobody listened as the speech came to a close. All eyes were now on Wallop, smugly observing the sea of faces from his perch in the gallery. The message was clear. Only Wallop had the experience, conviction, and strength to lead Britain, and he fully intended to do so. A cry of approval filled the chamber, and Wallop smiled. I'll send martial law. The last year has been, in short, a pile of shit for everyone involved. Families been torn apart, brother turned upon brother. Lives been overturned, and we were left to pick up the pieces. One thing we can take solace in, however, is the fact that resistance is finally well and truly crushed. And for better or worse, Britain's future has been decided. And as the shelled husk of buildings are replaced with new ones, and people begin to once again walk the streets without fear of getting bombed, we can say that life is slowly but surely returning to normal. The only task that remains for us is to give the order to the army to formally end martial law. Only then can we finally put the ghost of the past behind us and continue onwards into the future unimpeded. How's it looking in Russia? Robo's doing well. Kemerovo won over here. Looks like Sverdlovska's winning here. I'll give the itch to Magadan. Yeah, Magadan here. The Prime Minister slowly walked up to the podium across from 10 Downing Street. He stared out to the waves of people surrounding the street. With it being one of the biggest announcements of life, he was scared. Anything could happen. The reconstruction process might have well been underway, but resistant forces were still out there. The remaining forces, given the right opportunity, could raise hell. He shook the feeling off, refusing to give the thought the benefit of the doubt, and began the most momentous speech of life. All my fellow people of Britain, we have managed over the past few months to crush an uprising that did nothing but throw this nation into the fires of despair. I must send my condolences to all the families that had to face the perils of this war, and who experienced them collectively. But in the end, we have overcome it. And I must keep this brief to spare the time of millions, but we have come farther than I could have ever imagined. We as a people have rebuilt. We have made ourselves stronger than any man alone could have done. We made ourselves stronger than... I already read that. And I announce with great pleasure, from all parties involved, martial law across Great Britain will cease 24 hours from the current time. Upon hearing this, the crowd went wild. When the noise dimmed again, he continued, with the completion of such a momentous accomplishment of defeating the rebellion against us, I have served my purpose as Prime Minister, and as such I will be stepping down in the coming weeks. I cannot announce the date currently for the leniency of time, but the PPP must soon find a new leader. I hope my legacy as Prime Minister will be defined by this moment as I open Britain back to its peaceful state. I wish all of you the best of days, and have a good afternoon. The end of an era. It was strange how one could know a man, but not really know him at all. In theory, everyone should know the Earl of Portsmouth, especially with how long they'd met. Often they'd met. Even been a subject for solid 10 minutes of the Lord's agricultural opinions, and Wallop had no shortage of opinions at a Balmoral party once. Even so, at the time he had taken only moderate notice, considering him just another eccentric lord vying for attention. No sooner had he finished that thought than the door swung open, a servant entered, followed by the Prime Minister. Wallop out. Your Majesty, pronounced Gerald Wallop, dramatically rising from his perfect bow. He gestured to the couch across from Edward. May I? Please. My congratulations on acquiring the BPP's confidence and your ascension to the Prime Minister. It's a relief to have someone I can know that I can rely on in the office. That last part was a bit of an exaggeration, but Edward figured he ought to start off on a good foot now that he finally had a prime minister who seemed to respect him. "You would honor me, Your Majesty. If I say so, your confidence means even more than the party's does. We are servants of the crown, after all." Wallop's face took on a serious expression. "You have my lord, Your Majesty, that so long as I remain Prime Minister, I shall never allow the Crown's authority to be challenged again. This last little uprising will be the last of its kind." Maybe this could be a good thing after all, the king considered. After Lloyd George's coughing, Bedford's histrionics, Chesterton's dismissiveness, and Domville's disinterest, having a Prime Minister who actually listened to him would be a welcome change. Cautiously optimistic, the king favored Virrell with another odd. "In that case, Lord Portsmouth, I would be pleased to invite you to form a government in my name. His Majesty the King has asked me to form a government, and I have accepted. In the footsteps of my forerunners, I once again tread, and England's hills shall be once again be bright." Gerald Wallop, the 9th Earl of Portsmouth, has been appointed Prime Minister of the United Kingdom following resignation of his predecessor, Ronald Nalkane, 2nd Baron Brockett. A longtime friend and ally of former PM Barry Domville before his assassination, Wallop's appointment represents a surprising resurgence of declining conservative wing of the BBP, although there are rumors abound that indicate that Lord Portsmouth may have his own designs for Britain. In his first speech, Wallop announced that he would lead a government true to His Majesty the King, and that he would heal the wounded spirit of the realm. How exactly the new Prime Minister intends to accomplish this is unclear, though sweeping reforms across all sectors of society are expected, along with a bullish stance against the German megacorporations in Britain. A triumph of the old guard, or something even older? Well, we have the Garden of the World. Hold on. We got something new here. Ooh, the Thames Estuary. Oh, all these are done. Well. Well, here we are, my friends. Let us go ahead and leave things here. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it here, at least. Thank you for watching, my friends. If you like this video, like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you have any comments or feedback or anything of the sort, leave in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get, and I appreciate any feedback you might have for me. Check out my various links down in the description box below. I read all the comments I get, and I appreciate any feedback you might have for me. And yeah. That's it for now, my friends. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye now.